Hello and welcome, Exiles, to an update to the Energy Blade Inquisitor. Because when GGG says ballistic character balance, they of course mean not nerfing ES and keeping pretty much the same stale meta we had last league. But who's complaining? Because the build's still good, it's still fun to play, and it'll make you feel bad about playing other things because its scaling is just a bit unethical. Now, this build did get some changes, and by some changes, let's not over exaggerate it, they're very minor, tiny, like, I was questioning whether or not I should even make this video, but we'll go over them. I'm going to keep it short and sweet. Obviously, we have the fully in-depth guide we made last league. I would reference that if you want more details than what I'm going to go over today, but I'm going to hit the bullet points, so let's get into it. Now that we're in the POB, let's keep this thing succinct. Right up here, top right, loadouts. There's a lot of different setups. Whenever you change this, it will change both the item set and the skill set to match. The reason there's so many setups is because we have the starting basic early map setup, and then as you farm your initial currency, you're going to pick one of three play styles. You're either going to say, I want to play mines, which you'll do a tri-stack mine setup, or you'll say, hey, I want to play cast on crit. There's a cast on crit setup, or you say, hey, I want to play self-cast. All three of these are quite a bit different in terms of playstyle, but they all use the same scaling. Energy Blade, big flat lightning. Battle Mage says big flat lightning applies to spells. Spellblade support says more big flat lightning applies to spells. You do big damage. That's pretty much it. It's not too complicated. That's the base building blocks. Of course, on the tree progression, I have from level 12 all the way to early maps, and I have a video of basically a recording of me doing an entire campaign run, along with after the campaign run, showcasing me setting up some early scuff map setups, doing some testing. That's what this is. That's what it's for, as a reference and give you an idea. If you want to know how to level the character, this will give you a complete rundown of that. So that's the idea. This tree should take you all the way through the campaign, and you could follow along that video progression if you would like. And then later on, you want to force yourself, or decide between one of three play styles. They're all very good. I personally probably like cast on crit the most, but mines can be quite fun, and so can self-cast. Just really depends on dealer's choice. Now, aside from all of that, I will also reference there is another POB, which is from the previous guide I made before, which goes into detail on how to sanctum rush. When it comes to an Energy Blade start, there are two ways you go about starting. A is you go into maps with a bit of a scuff, squishy setup, and you deal with it, and you just farm your first few divines. You get to the Ivory Tower swap, and you enter God status, right? You start just destroying the content. Or option B, which I guess is the more normal option, which is you specifically set up your earliest setup to go straight into Sanctum and make some currency. I didn't promote this as much last league because it was unclear how much they were nerfing Sanctum by. On retrospect of viewing the changes they did to Sanctum, they nerfed the Sanctum Divine drop rate by, I want to say about 50%, maybe more, which is a significant portion of the early Sanctum currency. However, you still get a crap ton of bubblegum currency, and the cost of buying tomes is now completely free. It used to be like 5 to 10 C on day one, and then you'd start paying 20, 30 C a tome. So you had like a decent cost for running tomes. Last league, the tomes were just free. No one wanted to run Sanctum knowing it got nerfed. It was way less popular, and thus there was just an absorbent supply of tomes on the market. I would personally suggest going to Sanctum. The build is much better set up to go straight into Sanctum. The way you gear it early on, it leans more towards being squishy, more glass cannony. But if you want to, you can go to maps as well with the self-cast setup. That's what these are for. I'm going to have a separate POB that I will label in the description, which it goes over the mine setup, as well as the main POB, which includes all three of the late game setups in these different loadouts. As for the notes section, this will give you a rundown of some of your progression, some of the pros and cons of the builds, some of the options for self-cast, all those sorts of things. Look over it based on how much information you need. Of course, I have the more in-depth video I recorded last league, which is going to be a lot more in detail than this video is. I'm just kind of trying to keep this short and sweet for you guys so that way we don't take too much time. And then probably the most important section here is the better trading buy list. There is one in this, as well as the Sanctum Rush POB, which has a buy list for more of the Sanctum Rush gear, whereas this is more generalized. All you do is click, hover over, Control C, and then you need a better trading extension import folder. It should look like this, and you click save, and then you'll have a buy list that looks like this. This is just to allow you to keep all of your main upgrades in one place and make it easier to search for them. For example, one of the hardest things is, let's say, buying yourself early good jewels on trade. If you look at this trade search, I have a bunch of like ideal stats. I mapped out their weightings. Just adjust the weighting based on how good of a jewel you're looking for, and that should help you find some really nice upgrades early on. For example, a lot of rare jewels, a lot of rare items. There's some pretty premium pickups you can get in these first few days where they're selling for a lot cheaper than they do later on. And this is what it is for. It's to help you get your early upgrades and start steamrolling the content. Now, as for the big overarching changes to the build as a whole, there aren't many. I would say one of the biggest changes is the Spectre auto resummon. I never recommended or specifically highlighted Spectres for this build, specifically because it's horrible quality of life. My thought process was, you go, you buy a Spirit of Fortune, you do a map, it dies, you have to go rebuy one. It's this painful process. I didn't want to mention it because I didn't want people to deal with that bad quality of life, but they changed the game this league, and now the Spectres, they don't disappear. You don't have to go rebuy a new one, and they will resummon the next zone. So even if you don't have great Spectre survivability, the amount of times they'll be up during a map might feel worth it. The Fortune Spectre, for example, gives Lucky Lightning and Wrath. This is almost 50% more damage to your character. So it's worth considering, even if some maps it dies in. You can make up your mind how you feel about it. But I listed a few examples here of some of the Spectres. You can look at the Perfect Corpse page. They give a lot of good buffs, something to consider in my opinion. That's what this is here for. Probably I think one of the biggest changes that we had to E-Blade this league. We didn't have a lot of changes, so that's just reference that. Next up is the Bloodlines. I was really hoping this would be a massive change to the build, and I have to say I don't really think it was. Looking over the Bloodline Ascendancies, there are just not very many Ascendancies that are applicable to this build specifically, as well as they were kind of on the safe side in my opinion in terms of interesting things happening that you could try to utilize or build around. So specifically, I've noted a few that could work. For example, if you do self-cast, Oshabi Owl, if you want to try to do like 2 skill unleash setup, maybe that would feel pretty good. You'd have to invest into some seal gain frequency, but I think there's something there that could be fun, something to consider if you're going to do self-cast. Then all action speed. This is basically, I'm trying to plan around doing specifically the action speed mod in T17s. I don't think you click this for the most part, but if you're trying to avoid some of the more annoying situations with reduced action speed per skill use, stuff like that, that is what this would be for. It requires you to remove sockets from your boots. Should be doable. That's one to highlight. And then I also added Katarina Defense per Spectre here. I don't think this is really worth using over Augury Penitence. People are going to ask about it. 38 to 48 sounds like a lot, but this build gets a ton of percent ES from Strength and Int, which I don't think this ends up making it worth an Ascendancy point. But something to consider. If the Spectres feel pretty good, maybe try it out and see if it feels better than Augury Penitence. My gut says it's still weaker than Augury Penitence, but I figured I would include it because I think people would ask about it anyways. That is my top picks for this build for Bloodlines. Ultimately, I don't think very many of them are very good for this build at all, but you can make up your own mind on that yourself. So those are Bloodlines, those are Spectres. As for skills, they didn't really change any skills for the build. The same skills I recommend in the POB are the same skills that I think are good now. The biggest change that occurred is Wave of Conviction of Charthus, which I was like, this might be good as a self-cast skill. Confirmed. People tried it out. People liked it. I had a lot of people say who were playing the build, they tried the skill out and it was their favorite setup. So if you're doing self-cast, that is definitely one I would consider. As for the tree, as far as I know from the patch notes and stuff, there are no changes to the tree, so it's exactly the same. And then for gearing, Foulborn uniques could be a big change. It really just depends what all they're giving us in terms of Foulborn uniques, and we don't have info on this. The one thing we do have info on is the Red Dream, Red Nightmare, which is insane for life scaling, which life scaling is insane for Ivory, so that would be a best in slot for the build. But outside of that, it's just kind of like wait and see. Maybe there will be some Foulborn Wrathpith or Foulborn Ivory. We don't really know, but if there is something to consider, keep an eye out for it. And then last but not least, this one might come to you as a surprise, but I think there's actually something here that is quite legitimate, which is the 20-second shrine duration to the Guardian node. This effectively made that shrine node 100% more duration for encounters that previously couldn't get the duration. My biggest issue with the shrine node is it doesn't really function great in boss fights because all of a sudden you lose that shrine scaling outside of like your maps or whatever. And this 20-second base duration, I think, gives it a lot more chance to consistently give you something good. What I mean by that is you can add on a goal, which gives 50% shrine duration, takes this to 30 seconds. Then you can add a warp tattoo, which will take this then to being like 40 to 50 second durations. All of a sudden, you're talking about 4 big shrines up, which seems decently strong to me. You can make up your mind what you think about it. Unless I misread the Guardian change, I still think it gives you a big shrine every 10 seconds and they last base 20 seconds. But this could be a strong Ascendancy steal as an option, something to consider. All in all, those are the changes to the Energy Blade Inquisitor. We have the POB, which goes over the leveling, the various gear sets. I'm going to include this POB as well, which has the Sanctum Rush gearing. So that stuff's all still the same. Everything like that will be in the description. I will have the links to the video of my leveling run, as well as the old guide, which goes into a lot more details. I was just trying to do a fly overview of it because, quite frankly, I'm feeling a bit sick. I don't want to go into that much detail. And also, for a lot of you, you just want the rundown of what's changed for the Inquisitor, and that pretty much should cover it. For those of you that are going to log into eBlade Inquisitor, I hope you guys have a great league start. And for those of you that are playing something else, thanks for watching this video, I guess. As always, appreciate you guys. Take care and have a good one, Exiles. Peace out.